Hiakalai kaikinai kumukai Kalahi kiola ya monake ame monalo Ialoha ia o hilo hanake Mekaua kanilehu Le I hanakai ke alame ke ona una opana eva Aloha.
I'm going to be short because the show is the three presenters I have with me today, but I wanted to at least welcome you all to this really exciting event that we were able to put together. So my name is Chris Merritt, and I'm your State Historic Preservation Officer if you live here in Utah. I work for the Utah Division of State History. Elizabeth Hora, our public archaeologist, helped wrangle this huge event, but I just wanted to say welcome to this. I'm excited to bring this to you. I saw the governor, Spencer Cox's proclamation making August Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I'm like, let's capitalize on this and connect this really great moment, this really great community, but bringing together some of the history, archaeology, and also living community that makes this such an important part of Utah history. And we try to keep these events every so often to get new stories and new people into what many consider Utah history. That Utah is a very diverse state with a very diverse history, but sometimes we don't get told that and we don't get shared that. So this is a great opportunity for us to learn on the true history of Utah. So thank you all for coming today. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, who they represent, and they're part of the story. And so I wanted to first start with George and have him introduce himself, and then Charmaine, and then we'll wrap up with Ben Peichel. So George, please take it away.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate your time. I'm George Sabowski. I'm native Hawaiian. The Sabowski surname may throw you off a little. That's from my father's side. He's originally from Massachusetts, but I grew up in Hawaii, island of Oahu on the South Shore.
Thank you, George. Charmaine, you're on mute.
Okay. I'm Charmaine Wixom. I'm humbled to be the new president of the Iosepa Historical Association, following in big, huge footsteps. As you can see, if you've gone over the years, it's gone from nothing to quite a place to go, and quite a comfortable place to go when it wasn't before. I'm also the chairperson for the Historical Sites Committee with Kauahianaina Hawaii Hawaiian Civic Club here in Provo, and so I kind of have double duty, and it's nice to have that ability. I am retired. I used to be a paralegal and working with the state the HUD office to help people buy homes and keep their homes through home buyer education and financial education, because home is dear to my heart, and that's what Iosepa does for me, being home. I have 6 children who all come to Iosepa too. Well, some of them have gone across the nation, so they're not all able to come, but they come, the ones that are here come with me and are trying to follow in those footsteps too. And so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to be on this presentation, and thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. And Ben.
Thank you, Chris and Charmaine and George. It's an honor to be here with you. I've known Charmaine and George for, gosh, probably since 2007, and they have become great friends and colleagues over the years. My name is Ben Peichels. I am a curator of historic sites for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints here in Salt Lake City. I've worked for the church for about 10 years. And prior to that, I was a professor of archaeology at the State University of New York in Potsdam. And that's when I was actively researching, doing historical archaeology research at Iosepa. I hosted 2 field schools there in 2008 and 2010, summers of 2008, 2010. And that's how I was introduced to Charmaine and George. And I'll talk more about that a little later today, but very happy to be here and to listen to Charmaine and George talk story and to add what little I can as well from an archaeological perspective. Thank you to Chris and Elizabeth for hosting this.
Thank you, Ben, so much. And before we go, I just wanted to make a personal connection. Is when I first came to Utah in 2005, I went out to Skull Valley and visited the Iosepa Cemetery, and it is such an inspiring and austere landscape. And that cemetery is a very humbling place to think about the pioneers that developed this settlement and the stories that are there today, and the stories of those that live there. And I actually was able to meet while I was there randomly on a Saturday afternoon. One of the descendants was there taking care of the cemetery, and it was, really, really powerful to interact and have that deep connection. And so I've been waiting to hear more about this story, and I think more Utahns and more Americans need to know the story of Iosepa and its settlers. So with no further ado, George, I will kick it off to you, sir.
Thank you very much again, Chris. There's a couple of slides that I'm going to start off with to further my background and give you a little more introduction as to what I've been doing. And so I've provided some slides, and they're segue into Iosepa. I'm also retired. As of late, have been doing a number of productions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The most lately one was the Book of Mormon, and I was cast as a member. So these slides right here immediately is the production last year. And it was a wonderful time to be part of it then and today. Some of you may be familiar with Goshen. It's the site of the Jerusalem Center that the Latter-day Saint Church, or Church of Jesus Christ, has built. And it's an exact replica of the original Jerusalem, down to the pebbles and everything else. Having said that, I've just been honored to be part of that. And the reason why I give you some background on that, it's an honor to have my parents, if you go to the next slide, my grandparents, if you will, move here to Iosepa. Here's my grandfather on the left. We refer to him as Grandpa Mahoy. His name is John Kawaihi Naihe Makavalo Kalani Opu'u. He's a native Hawaiian from the outer islands, Oahu being the main island. When we say outer islands, we're referring to the base island of Oahu. On the right, there is my grandmother. Now, looking at this picture, you can tell from this picture the difference in age. Grandma was 13 years his junior. Grandpa was 13 years older than Grandma. Grandpa Mahoy was born in 1865. So as you think of that, 1865 was when the Civil War was coming to a conclusion, and President Abraham Lincoln was the president of the United States at that point in time. So it gives you a little perspective of my relationship to Iosepa and them settling there. Between those two, Grandma and Grandpa Mahoy, her name is Emily Mahoy, Umi Leiloha, and that's, and I'm going to pronounce that very correctly. That's a unique name. It's a ali'i, or royal name, and they were both from royal lineages. Grandpa Mahoy, like Grandma, both with their families, respective families, moved to Iosepa. Question often comes up as to why were the Polynesians, why would the native Hawaiians leave Hawaii, leave paradise, to move to Iosepa to move to Salt Lake City, first of all, which they did. And the answer to that is, like a lot of pioneers that were converts to the church at that point of time, they were encouraged and they followed the prophets and came to Zion here in Salt Lake City. And they were part of that group. So if you have the migration coming from, Europe and those areas coming westward, we have the native Hawaiians leaving paradise and coming eastward, if you will, coming through San Francisco on into Hawaii, on into Salt Lake City. Next picture, please. So as we go through the different pictures, here's two wonderful pictures, two wonderful shots of Grandma Mahoy. The fact that it was a ranch out in Iosepa, it was a great ranch. It was already established, and Charmaine and Ben will get into more details on the history and background of Iosepa. I just want to show and relate to a few pictures here. Grandma Mahoy and Grandpa had 14 children, 12 of which were born there in Iosepa. The two younger ones were born in Hawaii. The youngest of the 14 was my mom, Rhoda Poipi Mahoy Sadowski. Being the youngest and 14th, by the time she was born, she was essentially, obviously the youngest one, and she was raised by her entire family, by her older siblings. Grandma Mahoy, after giving birth to my mom, her 14th child, the next month, Grandma Mahoy turned 50. Yes, she turned 50. Phenomenal. So as you look at the background and history as to my relationship to my grandparents and to Iosepa, it was my grandparents that lived there, not my great-grandparents, not my great-great-grandparents, but my grandparents, my mom's parents. So that's a short and very close tie. So as we go on to the next slide here, it gives you a few more pictures of, I believe, Grandma Mahoy. And on the left is Grandpa Mahoy. This picture on the left is back after they left Iosepa and went back and settled back in Oahu. This picture is, he was a janitor at a local high school there, Lelihua High School. And he was, there was a ceremony that went on. Lelihua, that land there was given to Grandpa Mahoy. That was part of his heritage from the royalty, from the monarchy. So he was, as I've indicated at the beginning, Ali'i, and he was part of a royal family, as was Grandma Mahoy. Going on to the next slide. Here's Grandma Mahoy on the left and also on the right. So as you look at the dress and their attire, they had clothes that we would normally wear, and that was their typical clothing that they had. Look at the lace. Her arm is just lace. There's a whole bunch of lace there. They're long, beautiful lace, and there was some celebration going on. So as we review and go back in history to Iosepa, it's a sacred place to us as our heritage, as our grandparents, our ohana have grown up there. We have relatives here in the valley. There's when the Native Hawaiians and other Polynesians, their Iosepa left, so people ask, why did they leave? Well, they left because it was announced by the first presidency at that time, Joseph F. Smith, that there was going to be a temple built in Hawaii. Now think about that. This is in the late 1800s. The temple was finished in 1917. Because of that announcement, many of the Polynesians, Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians moved back to Hawaii to build the temple. Now, that was obviously a huge feat for them to do that. It wasn't easy for them to leave Iosepa. A lot of them had a hard time because they were there for many years. They worked the land. Iosepa was already established as a farming, ranching community. So it wasn't something that they started off by themselves. And Charmaine will get in more detail as to the background and history on that part. I just want to get into the details of my direct heritage with the Mahoys and other families that lived out there. Whenever we celebrate, and each year we do this at Iosepa during the Labor Day weekend, we gather together as ohana, as friends and family to celebrate what our forefathers have undertaken there. It was a beautiful land. It was really well worked. And there's running water there. There was sufficient pressure on the water system that drained from the mountain foothills down into the township, that it provided hydrants, fire hydrants. And so there was enough pressure there to support that effort. And again, Charmaine and Ben will get into perhaps some details of this. So I just want to conclude my portion of this, which is perhaps short, but our history is sacred to us, and we love it very much. And appreciate this opportunity, Chris, for you folks providing us the time and effort in going through this. Thank you very much.